chief. But as I'd stated earlier, there were some personal issues with respect to why I was stepping down. It had nothing to do with what was going on. In fact, the discussions on it were had with some of my closest friends prior to all of this. And so with discussions, how I came in as chief was with family, and I wanted to make sure that I left with family. And it was funny because what was happening was, as I was talking about it, there was a lot of talk about, we need you to stay for another 5 years, not from the board, but from a lot of other people. And what would it take to keep you here longer? And so I wanted to make that definitive. It's done. I'm leaving. There was no, when I signed for the year, it was a year. There are a couple of things that I wanted to accomplish. And I will say that this COVID-19 has manifested differently to a lot of people, including my family. And so rather than have people think that there is a potential that I may stay longer, I stopped it. And I had discussed with the mayor and with the chair before that announcement. So it wasn't anything to do with the time of day or the events around the world. It was really about family first.
You famously had a kidney transplant in the middle of your term. Does your early departure have anything to do with your health?
No, my wife's kidney's doing well. Thank you for asking. But no, it has nothing to do with health in any way, shape, or form. It's so funny. I've done almost 38 years, and people are going, "Why?" It's close to 38 years of policing. But really, as I've stated, all of the reasons, the vast majority are personal. And I like the way that I've been a part of bringing the organization to where it is right now. And I had a meeting with my senior officers a couple of months ago, and there was a real epiphany for me. I looked around, and for the first time, I felt really, really good about where this organization is going with the leadership that this organization now has. And so I'm excited about where this organization is going to go, and I'm glad that I was a part of that.
Well, can I follow up on that? How different is the service you lead today from the one you took over 5 years ago?
Well, first off, I have learned from the best. All the chiefs prior to me have done amazing jobs during their time. And I will say that we're now in a new era, Steve, where things are moving exponentially now, where everybody has a voice, and that voice has movement. Things can happen. And so when I got into the modernization plan, when I worked with a transformational task force, it was to develop a model that was nimble, to develop a model that could deal with the exponential change in which the world moves at. And we're moving towards that, and I'm really proud of that accomplishment.
Okay, you know I take no joy in putting these criticisms to you, but I'm reflecting what I hear out there, and I'm going to give you a chance to respond to it. But, you know, critics have described you as a guy who's too happy with the status quo and too happy with sort of ingratiating yourself with the establishment of the city. They say you were the safe pick for the chief's job in the first place, and you didn't provide the shakeup that the police service needed. How would you respond to all of that?
Well, I'd say, a lot of people are ill-informed. If you looked at what this organization did, Steve, this is an urban city, fourth largest in the North American continent. And the fact that I could sit down with my co-chair then, Andy Pringle, and create a model of what this police service should look like by incorporating the community right from ground zero, right from a blank canvas, was phenomenal. And the fact that we did that, first we did the interim report, and then we traveled north, south, east, and west across the entire city and said, look, are we moving in the right direction? Getting their buy-in, getting their understanding of what was going on, and then creating the final report. And that final report it resonated with the public because we were using their words. We were listening to what they were saying. And we're at a spot right now where some exciting things are happening. We're at a spot where we've done amazing things. When we talk about things that we have changed, now the discussion about anti-Black racism, I added a third day of training dedicated to two things. Number one, community engagement. And the second piece was dealing with people that live with mental health. It is critical in today's environment if we're going to define value in a public sector.
And the criticism that some saw that you, and again, this is their words, that you ingratiated yourself with the white power structure of this city in order to get and keep your job, your response to that?
I don't know who these people are or what they're saying. If you look at what I have done over the past 5 years, we have moved this organization forward, and there's no denying that. You can use incredible university words. At the end of the day, we created some fantastic deliverables, some things that are sustainable. And when we talk about the type of training, that we have incorporated in policing today, it's second to none. People from all around the world are coming to see how we're doing what we're doing.
Who or what was the biggest impediment to your pursuing your agenda?
Well, I won't say biggest impediment. I think we were moving at a fast rate. And what we felt would have been successful was, everyone asked, why is this report different than every other? And the answer was because a lot of people are on board. A lot of people wanted to make these changes. And I would say that we moved at a rate that was much faster. Laws aren't moving at the speed of technology today, and that becomes a roadblock. When we're trying to create an evergreen environment in a very, very slow, robotic, moving environment, it's not healthy. But what it does is it starts to pulse for others to say, you know what, we've got to pick it up. So the impediments right now, I think that we have to figure out how words can translate into actions quicker. Especially when you've got entities that are ready for those things to take place.
Well, you didn't specifically name the who or the what, so I'm going to be a little blunter this time and see if we can nudge your answer along a little more. Mike McCormick is a very able representative for the Toronto Police Union. You know, his job is not to do your job. His job is to stick up for his guys, and I use that term in a gender neutral way, of course. And that's what he would say he is doing. I wonder if you thought he was an impediment to your doing what you needed to do.
Well, we had some complex moments. There's no denying that. But I can tell you, we both have the same goal at the end, which is we want the best for every member of the organization. The how is what's different. He takes a different approach than I do. And so I'm responsible for the conduct of everybody. And so when you play in those two lanes, it does cause frustration at times. But at the end of the day, slow and steady wins the race. One of the big things was the shift scheduling. It was a 36, 37-year model in today's times. It needed to be adjusted. And, you know, through efforts and understanding, we've now moved towards that. And by all accounts, everything is looking great. Unfortunately, this pandemic has set in, which has slowed a few things down, Steve, but I think it's going to create some great opportunities in the months to come. Well,
let me ask you about trust, because there's a couple of quotes here I want to read to you. You once said, "Public trust is a fabric that creates community safety." The mayor of the city has said trust has been eroded. How much would you say Torontonians actually trust their police service right now?
There are strong elements of trust, but listen, as law enforcement in today's environment, if you're not always working towards public trust is everything. It is the pulse of the relationship between community and police. And if you lose that, you've got to figure out what you need to do quickly to turn that around at all costs. And when we speak of our plan, it is community-centric. It is done so deliberately because this is what's going on today. Steve, look at our protests. We have protests with 7,000 people. You never saw a shield from any of my members. To me, that shows that there are elements of trust that are there, but we're not where we need to be. There needs to be a lot more work done, and we're willing to make that work happen. We need to get to the tables to figure out, what do you want of us? How can we continue the relationships? And it's through actions and time that develop public trust.
I'm now going to ask you about what may have been the most iconic moment in the anti-Black racism protests, certainly in this capital city of the province of Ontario. Let's roll that tape right now, and then we'll talk about it. Go ahead, please.
Show we're about peace. Take a knee. Take a knee. Take a knee.
Put your hands up, take a knee, baby.
Put your hands up, take a knee,
Hands up, take a knee, baby.
Chief Saunders, what went into that moment where you took the knee with demonstrators?
I understood what was going on. And it's a wake-up call for all of us. And for all my years in the seat, all the town halls that I've gone to, all of the conferences that I've gone to, every single time I have people that get up and represent the youth. It's like, the youth want this, the youth want that. What I saw that day, Stephen, if you roll the tape again, I saw young men and young women. These were people that never come to these events, never have a voice. They have people that represent them. To me, this represented hope. And I said to them, keep spreading the word, stay focused on the message. Don't let others distract from the message that needs to be put out there. These people want to carve their future the way in which they want the world to be. And so if we don't respond quickly, we will lose them. And if we lose them, then all of this is for naught. And I think that that's critical. And so by me taking the knee, it's me showing, listen, I'm a Black man too. I understand why you feel this way, but we have to get to the table. Things have to be done and actions have to take place. These protests that are going on, it is a message that people are frustrated. They're frustrated on what's happening. You can't say on one voice that all laws are treated equal, and then on the other spectrum, you're not going to deliver a meal to this address because of postal code. So there are a lot of issues that are taking place. And right now they've translated it to police and community. It is a system that is defaulted right now. The police deal with the symptoms of that disease each and every day. So there's a bit of sleight of hands going on. The funding has to be, it's not just giving a bag of money, it's understanding what every single community needs in that moment, why they need it, and then creating the right sustainable funding in order to make it work.
Well, I certainly heard plenty of praise, Chief Saunders, for that gesture that you took on that day, and you received numerous compliments for it, and it was an impressive, as I suggested earlier, iconic demonstration of solidarity with those protesters. Others would point out that 4 years ago, you had the opportunity to do that with Black Lives Matter protesters who were camped outside the building that you are in right now, and they were highlighting the death of a Black man at the hands of police, Andrew Loku, and you declined at that time to meet with them. And I guess they're wondering whether that cause was any less just than this cause.
No. What it was a methodology. The point one version had one solution to everything: shut it down. That was it. If you go back and you listen to my quotes, I said, listen, anyone wants to come in, get to the table, and have some meaningful conversations, my door is always open. I quoted that over and over and over again, but they refused to do that. You know, at one point in time, there's a big picture of me at headquarters saying, you may think that I'm Mark Saunders, but really I'm a white supremacist. So, I mean, it was more about sound bites. What we have now are legitimate people from all over the world that are saying that there is a problem with the system. It needs to be fixed.
Well, let me do one follow-up on that. Here's Sandy Hudson, the co-founder of Black Lives Matter Toronto, writing in the Huffington Post, Black communities interact with police regularly because we live in neighborhoods police target. We are experts in the ways that police can brutalize and inflict violence upon us. Their presence is no assurance of safety. Wealthier, non-Black, non-Indigenous, privileged communities tend to feel safe because they have a rarely used option to call the police when they feel their safety is threatened. But they are generally not interacting with police. Their communities are not policed in the same way, and they are not targeted for criminalization. The very purpose of the police has always been antithetical to the safety of Black and Indigenous people. Can I get you to comment on that, Chief Saunders?
Sure. So there are a couple of things to that, Steve. First and foremost, again, I didn't see a solution there. And that's a very common theme. Great at pointing things out, but never necessarily a sustainable solution other than the money goes back to the community. How that money goes back to the community is what is critical if this is going to work. And so that's the first thing. And the second thing, I've been in communities for the past 5 years, never seen her in a community. So listen, if we're going to help communities, we have to get into the communities and hear them speak. I keep hearing a lot of times representatives of the community, and I go to the community and they go, who are they? So let's get this right and let's work collectively. That's what's important here. We can point fingers all day long. Nothing happens. It's about working collectively. There are things that the police have to do. That's just the way things are right now. If we can reduce the things we have to do, I'm all for it. But I'm all for it if there is a structure in place that is sustainable, that gives the right productivity to enhance community safety, which is the second goal in a modernization plan, to enhance partnerships to create better community safety. So I'm in alignment with that. This is not anything that's new to me, but again, absolutely zero solutions there.
Well, I'm happy to point out for the record that as the first Black police chief in the city's history, you no doubt had an incredible burden on your shoulders, and you had sky-high expectations from many members of the Black communities that you would be able to do what previous white predecessors had not been able to do, namely improve the relationship between the police and the Black communities of this capital city. Do you think you succeeded in improving that relationship?
Yes, I've definitely moved it forward. My role is not to be the all-encompassing, because you're a Black chief, everything changes. That's not how culture changes. If you look at some of the great leaders that were of color. Everything doesn't change just because of that. But the one thing that can't be denied is that I have a lived experience. That lived experience is also manifesting itself in the seat. I understand what it feels like to be in Black skin and living in the neighborhoods. I understand what it's like to be in a store and being followed around by security, even as chief of the police. And my wife sits down from the back, she's white, and she watches this over and over again. There is systemic racism within our country. There is systemic racism right across the world. That's what these protests are about. And now it's time to get Black people to executive tables, to have that power imbalance to be shifted, to have systems put in place that speaks to equity right across the board. That's not happening right now. When you don't have a computer in your house, you're at a 30% deficit in your educational growth and development. So where are the computers in those neighborhoods? And we can go on and on and on, Steve. You probably know this better than me. We need to get to the real truth, and we have to act on that truth.
Let me ask you about mental health, Chief. Do you think in this day and age, the Toronto Police Service ought to be responding to calls when the call is about mental health issues?
We're the ones being called. We're the ones being called. We are the de facto 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, including Christmas and New Year's Eve. We are it. Nobody else stands up. Nobody else takes these calls. We do it. And what we've done is we have enhanced our training. And our training is state of the art. It's one of the best in the world, Steve. We utilize CAMH. We use medical facilities. We use psychologists. We use doctors. We speak to the Ontario Human Rights Commission. We speak to the Privacy Commission. It's written by a collective group, and it is evergreen. We're always learning how to improve on that. But until other systems are in place to take over these 30,000 calls in a system that actually works, I will gladly hand it off to them.
Okay, so given what you know right now, do you think it would be better in future, if it were possible, to create different systems for a different organization or institution to respond to these calls?
Well, look at the mental health issues that are happening in our city. The one thing that has grown every single year has been our calls for mental health. And so right now, the ones that don't have families are either with us being processed on the streets, occupying a hospital bed, or in correctional facilities. That's it. And so, if you want to say that, it's the police is the problem, I'm telling you, it's the system that's a problem right now. And as that number keeps increasing, if you're going to have law enforcement looking after health and you're going to say all is well, if other systems aren't in play to take care of this, all is not well.
Well, I'm sure you saw Mayor Tory's press conference this morning, in which he put forward a motion suggesting that alternative models of community safety response ought to be developed, the creation of a non-police-led response to calls which don't involve weapons or violence. Would you be for that?
Yeah, I want to see what this plan is going to look like. I think that some of the things are oversimplified. I've sat at many round tables for years, bringing all of the various stakeholders. We've all got up and cheered each other and said, this is a great thing, let's get out there, and nothing happens. And again, it speaks to the modernization plan, creating partnerships. If we're going to do this right, then others have to step up and be the 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week entity that steps in front of us and takes these calls on. But I just don't see it yet.
Well, okay, fair point. You know, of course, that if this does go forward, and if, in fact, an alternative mode of delivery can be created, they are going to want to fund it from the money that currently goes to the police budget. Would you understand that police budgets may have to be smaller in future years in order to accommodate this new delivery system?
Whatever needs to be done to enhance community safety, I'm all for it. But I just want to be cautious and say that it has to be built first before the funds are removed. 90% of my budget, salary and benefits, 90. That other 10%, Steve, has been tinkered with for as long as I can think. So if somebody wants to come in and do the line by line, they can have at it. So, if we want to have vehicles or gas or the ability to flush a toilet and they want to cut that down, by all means, go ahead. But 90% of our budget is salary and benefits.
You know, of course, the two Toronto City Councillors have filed a motion to cut the Toronto Police budget, which currently stands at north of $1 billion. They'd like to cut it by 10%, which would be a little over $120 million, and reallocate that money into social services. Your friend, Mr. McCormick from the Police Association, calls that grandstanding. What would you call it?
Well, if they're going to do that, and I'm responsible for community safety, adequate and effective policing by law, and so the numbers will dictate what we can and can't do. But by law, we have to provide that. And so if whatever comes across the table is not viable, if there aren't other things in place, then we'll be there to say you have to put other things in place before anything can happen. So, and I think I'm pretty sure at the end of the day, if it's done right, it's not to be punitive to the police, but it's to enhance community safety. And if that's the case, then they have to listen to all of the stakeholders and what will happen if this is done or what will happen if this is not done.
Chief Saunders, you told us earlier that you thought relations between your police service and the black communities had been improved under your watch. And I wonder if you'd say the same thing about your relationship with the LGBTQ community.
Everything is evergreen. Some people, when I go into the community, fine, love me. Others, not so great. I understand. And if we're going to get this right in law enforcement, then the inclusion of all community is necessary for us to get it right. I've made a lot of effort to try to make things work. I've got lots of representatives that are helping as well. I've got neighborhood officers that are dedicated to that community. I know that the commander in that division is continuously updating me and advising me what the issues and concerns are. I've always offered my hand if there's anything that is needed, but there's still room to grow. And I will speak to the fact that this organization was the first law enforcement agency to have a gender-neutral facilities, and the commitment that any new building will always have that as a symbolism. Listen, we're trying to get this right. A lot of the members from the communities are really on side with the police, and we still have a lot of work to do and get to certain corners that are very hard for us to get to.
As I follow up on that, I guess I just point out a couple of things. Number one, of course, the police have quite notably been asked not to participate in the Pride Parade for a few years going now. And the second thing was, and for people who live outside Toronto and may not know all the details of this, there was a serial killer by the name of Bruce MacArthur. And I guess at some point in the investigation, you famously said, or initially said, that there was no evidence that there was a serial killer operating in Toronto, and the disappearances of all of these gay men were not linked. And of course, it turned out to be quite the opposite. You know, as you look back, do you wish you hadn't said that?
Well, again, I was factually correct with what was said at that time. The evidence that showed the serial aspect of this investigation wasn't until January. On that date when I said what I said, it was because that's what I was told, and that's what my investigators believe. And these are highly trained investigators. It was not taken lightly. However, as evidence came in, and it came in a flash bang, things had changed drastically. When I say drastically, I mean lightning quick.
Chief, we're down to our last minute, and I guess my last question for you would be your successor. What advice would you give him or her for how to do this job well?
I spoke on it earlier, which is building that public trust, which is a lot easier said than done. Today's environments are very savvy. They want action. And they want that compassion. So I've invested in training to make sure that we are as best as we possibly can under every given circumstance. But you've got to be away from your desk. You've got to be out there. You've got to be in the community. You have to understand Toronto. You have to if you've got to come in and open a playbook on Toronto other than visiting, I think that there's going to be a problem with that. So the city is the most diverse in the world for a reason, but it's also one of the most compassionate in the world. And so I was glad to have had the honor of serving the seat for the next 36 sleeps.
36 sleeps to go. Chief Saunders, we're really grateful that you would take so much time out of your schedule to be with us here on TVO tonight and take our questions. And we wish you well with whatever comes next after the end of July. Thanks so much, sir.
Thank you, Steve.
Tomorrow on the agenda.
The problem with Mike Harris was that he didn't listen when he didn't want to listen. And so Walkerton and privatizing water supply, or I should say deregulating and so on, was the price he paid for thinking that he could do it better, cut red tape and things like that. I mean, look at Doug Ford today and red tape. He's bringing it back because he understands that you actually need to re-regulate and control nursing homes and other aspects of public and everyday life.
That's tomorrow on the agenda. Children in the province over long for and celebrate it, the last day of school. Only this year is unlike any other since they haven't been in their schools for months. And what exactly the kids will come back to also remains a bit of a mystery. Caroline Alfonso covers education for the Globe and Mail, and she joins us now from the Danforth in the capital city for an update on that and the latest on anti-black racism and the Peel District School Board. And why don't we start there, Caroline, as we welcome you back to the program. The Ontario government has appointed a supervisor to take over the Peel District School Board. Bring us up to date on why that is.
Well, to be quite short about it, what the supervisor's in there for is because the Peel Board failed to address issues of its dysfunction and issues of anti-black racism. Parents, community members, students have been demanding for months. They have been in that boardroom demanding from trustees that they take action about racism in schools. But there has been some infighting among trustees. There has been infighting among senior staff. In fact, the Associate Director of Equity at the Peel Board filed a human rights complaint against the director and the board with allegations of discrimination. So the government ordered a review of the board. The minister set forth a number of directives, including, putting together a policy on anti-racism with community members. Dysfunction continued, infighting continued. And so the minister put in an investigator to look into this. And the investigator found that the board does not have the will or the means to carry out these actions. The minister, once again, gave them a deadline. The board voted for a supervisor. And this week, the minister put in place Bruce Rodriguez, who's a former deputy minister, the former Director of Education for the Toronto Catholic Board. He's also been part of the review for St. Mike's College. And so he's been put in place this week. He has now taken over the board.
Now, school boards are theoretically an independent level of government. In fact, I think they're the oldest level of government in the history of the country. They predate the country. So I have to ask how common or not it is for the provincial government to actually install somebody to take over a board in this way.
It is, Steve, it's quite rare that it's done, especially for an issue like this, an issue around equity. I remember when in the early 2000s, when also a progressive conservative government took over 3 boards, Hamilton, Ottawa, and Toronto were the 3 boards. And I remember Toronto refused to balance its books because of a flawed funding formula. And so Paul Christie was brought in. At the time, I remember writing about that. So it's more about balancing budgets. It's quite rare. I don't know if I've heard of a board being taken over because of equity issues and the dysfunction around that.
Caroline, do these things tend to end well or not?
Well, it depends who you ask, Steve. Right now, already, Bruce Rodriguez came in this week. The next day, the Director of Education was removed from the board. So Peter Joshua is no longer there. Bruce has a task. He has a task to put this board back on track. He has a task to sort of listen to community members and rewrite some of the policies and some of the practices that are happening at the board. Does it end well? Well, nobody wants to be taken over. Elected trustees lose their power, but this board was failing to live up to its task. And parents and community members and students were requesting that. And now we'll see what the road ahead lies for this board.
All right, let's open our lens a little bit wider. That's the story in the Peel District. I want to talk about the whole province right now because, of course, this week, the Minister of Education laid out essentially a 3-pronged path forward for school boards as they start to think about reopening in the fall. What are those 3 options that he looked at?
So the 3 scenarios for the fall are a continuation of remote learning. The second option is kids return to school under a new normal with increased public health measures. And the third is a hybrid model that blends in-class instruction with remote learning. And the minister has tasked school boards to sort of come up with sort of how they would run this hybrid model. It could be alternate days for students. It could be alternate weeks. So we won't know, according to the government, until August which model we're going into come the fall. These scenarios are similar to what some other provinces have done. Alberta has taken a similar tact with return to school.
Do the school boards have the authority to make independent decisions, or do we have a feeling that the province is going to put its thumb on the scale one way or another here?
Well, the province has said the minister has said he's telling school boards to come up with how they would run these models. But at the end of the day, the minister did say that, like how the province has opened up regionally, schools and school boards could also take a regional approach to how the fall looks. So I think at the end of the day, the minister has said that he would like a hybrid model in place for the start of the year, depending on where we are with the number of cases, where we are with the second wave and when that's coming about. But I think there will be a move to try a hybrid model across the province, but it could take a regional approach depending on what the cases look like.
Now, I know you're a reporter and you don't like to editorialize about these things, so I'm going to be careful how I ask this next question. But, I mean, the reality is, let's take the Toronto District School Board, for example. Toronto is an enormous area. There may be parts of Toronto where there's no COVID at all. There may be parts of Toronto where COVID is a significant problem. Do you think it makes sense to have one policy board-wide as opposed to a board having the authority to break it down almost neighborhood by neighborhood or school by school?
I think parents would be up in arms, Steve, if schools in the West End opened and schools in the East End, we had to juggle our kids at home while many of us are working full time at home. I think, there's a lot to consider on how curriculum would run if you have sort of within a board schools opening in some pockets and not in others. I think it would be quite difficult to manage, especially like if you consider teachers don't live necessarily in their neighborhoods and they have children as well. So those teachers, you can't say in the West End, your kid is going to school if you're a teacher, or your kid is not going to school in the West End, and in the East End, your kid and you are going to school. How does that work with juggling childcare, for example? Well,
good point. And I guess just quickly and finally on that issue alone, how are they going to do this? Let's say, for example, there's a high school class of 30 and you're only allowed 15 of them in school on one day, which means 15 aren't in school. What do parents who have to, let's say they both work outside the home, what do they do about childcare on the days when 15 of the kids are out of home? I mean, has anybody figured all this stuff out?
Well, for high school, it'd be a little different because
they're
old enough to be,
but maybe elementary.
But elementary. And I've been speaking with some boards this week, in fact, on how they would do that. What would happen on the days that kids, who are in grade 3 and younger, who are not in school, and they're still figuring that out, because at the end of the day, all those school classrooms would be used for 15 kids. So you can't put an before and after care program to become a childcare program in those buildings. And there's so many questions right now. And I think right now school boards in this province are trying to determine what childcare is going to look like in the summer months. Childcare is opening up in many parts of the province in the next couple of weeks, what that's going to look like before they proceed to what school will look like. I mean, they have one task that's short term before they go into the long term, what school will look like.
Gotcha. In our last minute here, we got a new math curriculum announced this past week as well. Can you give us the highlights of what that looks like going forward?
We had, the minister had said last year around this time, or at least in August, that there would be a new elementary school math curriculum rolled out for elementary kids this September. Some has lots of change, some has stayed the same. Coding, for example, is going to be in the curriculum starting in grade 1. Kids in grade 1 are going to learn how to code. Financial literacy is going to be right through the curriculum. They're going to be memorizing their multiplication tables, which, the Premier and the Minister have been speaking about kids, learning their math facts. That does not mean that teachers in individual classrooms are not doing that. It's just now part of the broader curriculum. There have been sort of some questions about the release of the curriculum. We don't know what school is going to look like in the fall. And I know the teachers' unions and some educators are wondering, how is this rollout going to take place when there's so much uncertainty of what the fall will look like?
Caroline, you always sum it up so beautifully for us and put a bow on it to boot. Thanks for being on the agenda tonight.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Ice dancing is an incredibly demanding sport, even if the athletes who excel at it make it look like just beautiful moves on skates. Asher Hill was a Canadian junior champion who now coaches and choreographs for an up-and-coming generation of ice dancers. And among the lessons he'd like to instill in skating culture is a change in skate culture. Asher Hill is also co-host of That Figure Skating Show on CBC Sports YouTube channel, and he joins us now from Pickering, Ontario for more. Asher, it's so nice to meet you.
So nice to see you. So nice to meet you, to be talking with you.
So excuse my ignorance, but I didn't realize that there was a difference between ice dancing and ice skating. What's the difference?
So within figure skating, we have a bunch of disciplines. Four main ones. There's singles, so men and ladies, pairs, and ice dance, and then as well as synchro skating. And so the difference between them, as you would see, like the ladies and the men, they skate by themselves. They do jumps and spins, pairs, jumps, spins, throws, and girl goes over the head often. And in ice dance, we just spin and lift, and our lifts never kind of go over the head.
You use the word.
We are the superior skaters.
Well, I just noticed you use just. I'm like, just? It sounds, no, that's a lot. Are you doing it all on skates?
Yes, and then also on frozen water with knives on your feet.
So what drew you to ice dancing?
So I started skating at the age of 3 because my parents were big fans of figure skating. They're Jamaican immigrants, and my twin sister loved to watch skating too. So they put us both in it. And I hated it at first. I would cry on the ice and eat the ice, and then and then my parents were like, "You're wasting our time and our money," so they took me out. But I still had to go to the rink because my sister would go after school, and I eventually jumped back into it, and I loved it. And then doing free skate by myself for a while, and then eventually a woman by the name Mary Jane Stong in Skate Canada, she approached my mom at a competition. And she said that I would be a really good candidate for ice dance. And my mom had no idea what that was or anything. So when she went up to my coach, she's like, "This lady came up to me and told me that Asher would be a really good ice dancer and should find a partner." And my coach, Carol Lane at the time, she was like, "No," because I couldn't figure out my left from my right. I'm pretty sure I gave her a complex. I was not the smartest kid, but eventually I did find a partner, and yeah, I excelled at it. And
You said that after initially you weren't very good at it. What did you love about it? What was it that made you? I know your parents were pushing you towards it, but what about it did you love?
I really love movement and movements to music, and I was always a really good kind of showman and loved to perform, and so my favorite thing about ice dance was performing, and then also having someone to perform with and to feel off that connection and portray a story. That was always, as well as go fast and look pretty on the ice and just do things that people always just go wow at. And that was definitely my favorite part, was just performing and really getting into character.
We're having these conversations about representation mattering, and I come from a first-generation family. My family came here as refugees, and the ideas that the elders have for you when you decide to pick a profession, you go into the white-collar jobs. You're a doctor, maybe a lawyer, maybe an engineer, but ice dancing is not something that I would, within my family, that would be something that I could even imagine. So was this something that your parents imagined for you, or was it something that something inside you said, this is the thing that I'm really good at, and this is what I'm going to do with my life?
I think that I pretty parents were very supportive of us skating, but at the same time, like, school was very much important. Like, if we missed classes in the morning, we had a tutor. We were still AB students, and yeah, my mom was definitely elated when I figured out medical school to be an anesthesiologist, and then, you know, that kind of falling out because I didn't want to anymore. But they were very much like pushing us to be like, if you're going to do this, you're going to excel at it. You're going to try your hardest. You're going to like perform your best, skate your best. And then also being, you know, Black skaters, you have to work. The parents always drilled in us, no matter what you do, you have to work harder, because in a white society, you don't get the same advantages as like your friends and your counterparts.
Asher, when you look back at your athletic career, what are you most proud of?
I'm very proud of, you know, reaching one of my goals, which was competing at a world championship. That was really cool. Winning 3 back-to-back national titles from pre-novice, novice, and junior. And then making the national team in my first year senior with my partner, Karis Ralph. And, you know, qualifying for the Junior Grand Prix final, being able to compete internationally for Canada, and, you know, being often the only Black skater in an arena. Sometimes it felt like a city, depending on what city I was competing in. And yeah, just being able to say that I've reached so many goals that elude a lot of skaters. I didn't get to the Olympics, but I'm very proud of the things that I achieved, and you know, just thank you to my parents and everything for supporting me, and yeah, proud of what I've been able to turn my career into right now, being able to be a full-time coach, choreographer, doing what I love. And then, you know, opportunities like the CBC's That Figure Skating Show opening up for me, and getting to do that with like one of my very good friends, Dylan Moskovich, who I skated with forever. It's been pretty cool that, you know, I've been able to get all these opportunities just from my skating career.
I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but it sounded, when you were looking back on your career, you sounded a little bit sad. Was it a lonely place for you to be? When you look back at those accomplishments, was it a lonely place for you to be in?
Yes and no. I had, one thing with ice dance is you have a partner, which is great, and me and my longest partner, Karis Ralph, we were together for almost 15 years. So you're never really alone, especially because we had a pretty good relationship. But sometimes, you know, being the only Black skater in a rink, it did get, you know, tiresome when you talk like about jokes you would hear, off the cuff comments you would hear. I had like lots of great friends. I for the most part never felt super excluded, but I felt the only. Do you know what I mean? Like you're not outside of the group, but you are because of, you know, being Black in a way. But because I was mildly charismatic, people knew who I was, and, you know, it's also very easy to know who I am, often being the only Black skater at times. But you know, I think I was very lucky when skating at Scarborough. There's a huge, you know, Caribbean diaspora. So even at the rink, my mom had her friends of Guyanese and Jamaicans, and we all hung out together, and we were very mixed at Scarborough. So that definitely helped me growing up in skating, especially from a young age. And then when you just become a little bit more aware of things, and you hear the comments people make, that's when you start to feel like angry, alone at times. But yeah.
Well, what would you hear? What were the comments that you would hear?
Um, so yeah, one that was very popular that sometimes the power would go off at the ring, and the first thing I would always hear would, "Oh no, smile, Asher, so we can see you, and open your eyes," you know. And I never ever found that funny.
Meaning that you were
would
too dark? You were dark and they needed, right.
I was dark, and when the lights came off, I disappeared unless I showed the whiter part of my body, which are my eyes and my teeth. Um, and a defense mechanism you have as a person of color in a room arena that doesn't always represent you. You laugh it off, you roll your eyes, you just kind of keep going, you let it roll off your back, and you internalize it, which can cause a lot of other issues, but that's kind of how you survive and stuff.
Well, I've had friends asking me how I am doing right now because of the global movement for Black Lives Matter. How are you doing?
Okay, I'm doing okay. I think we're always doing okay because to us, this has been going on for decades, years and years. You know about it. Like when I was a kid, my biggest fear was that the KKK would come and like kill my family. So I was aware of racial prejudice as a child, and when you keep seeing these scenes of Black men and women being murdered and hearing about these stories, and then movements rise up, and then they kind of die down. And I only say die down from people who are so-called allies. They'll come with you for a bit and then retreat back because it's uncomfortable. Like we forget that Colin Kaepernick doesn't have a job because he took a knee, and Black Lives Matter used to be so incendiary. It could mean you losing friends and your job, and it was immediately met with other retorts such as All Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter, which are just veiled racism, because it was only in reference to when people were talking about how, Black people aren't being valued as other people in this country, in this world,
Well, you brought up the NFL. The NFL is one of the organizations, along with Skate Canada and a whole other, so many other organizations who've tweeted posts of support with the Black community and addressing anti-Black racism. So Skate Canada had a tweet. Part of that tweet said, Skate Canada supports a safe, open, and inclusive environment for everyone. And you responded. So we have part of the tweet that you sent. It said, at Skate Canada, I'm terrified that you'll try and take away my coaching license, but I can't stand for this. I'm supposed to be mourning my grandmother, and here I am being re-traumatized by your so-called allyship to end police brutality and racism. Enough. What Skate Canada tweet upset you? What did they tweet that upset you?
So pretty much like the first sentence in that whole post, because during this whole year of 2019 till now, I had been dealing with a racist, homophobic, misogynistic colleague at the club I used to work at, Skate Canada Brampton Chinguzi. And in June, I had finally had enough. There were other factors, like my sister who also worked at the club being, I had my own personal experiences with the coach, and then my sister was also having a lot of issues with the club and the board. And so I was just like, okay, I need to finally come forward. And so the club said they would do their own investigation with a third party. Because the club was favorable to the coach in question, I contacted Skate Canada and I told them, please do your own investigation into all these allegations, because I do not trust the club. I do not think it's going to be objective. I don't think the coaches there are also really good friends with the person I'm making complaints about, and they always have his back, and he's been getting away with like murder and they haven't done anything, so please do your own investigation. They did not. I felt the investigation was not done properly. They had investigated like 4 witnesses when I had given them well over 8, more than double that. And the investigation also happened once I left the club. And Skate Canada, abdicated their duties. They piggybacked directly off of the findings of that investigation. And even when I brought in new information after I appealed their decision to hold me in contempt of bullying and harassing and all that stuff, they didn't, seem to read the new evidence, didn't interview any of the other coaches, didn't interview any of the other parents who made the same complaints about the coach. So to be found to be the bully and harasser after, blowing the whistle on somebody who, would say things like, that's why I don't coach Black kids, or calling all Filipinos lazy, or referring to Black people with the N-word. And then for me to come forward with my experience, which is so hard, and to be turned around and be like, you're actually the problem, and now we're gonna reprimand you and put a letter on your file where if you step out of line again, you could lose your license. And that is a...
Well, Skate Canada has reached out to you, and they said that they hired a third-party investigator who concluded the allegations were unsubstantiated. We only have a minute left. What are some concrete changes you'd like to see implemented in skating moving forward?
Okay. Well, first, they didn't actually hire the third party. The club did. So things that we're working to do, and I'm saying we because we have started a coalition of skaters from US, Canada, and France, and around the world, and we are working with other alliances such as the Diversify Ice with Joel Savory, and we're coming up with concrete plans and a list of calls to action that we're going to be sending out to Skate Canada, the government, on how to make it better for athletes, coaches, and volunteers of color in the sport. We're having lots of great conversations, and I think through COVID, we would never be able to think about reaching out to each other. But now through COVID, we're having Skype meetings, Zoom meetings. We have a lot of things in the work, and I think that the onus is often put on athletes of color because we can't wait for them to make any changes because they won't. If they did, they would have done it by now. And so we're really working to, come up with this alliance that I think the name is a working name, but it's Figure Skaters for Diversity and Inclusion Alliance. And we're just working towards, making it better for people coming after us, because we realize the importance of role models, and we realize the importance of making this sport safer and inclusive for everybody, and everyone should feel welcome and able to achieve their goals, no matter what color they are.
And you had mentioned in the tweet that you recently lost your grandmother. We are sorry for your loss, and we appreciate you taking the time out to speak to us about some of the great solutions that you're coming up with. We appreciate you, Asher, and continued success.
Thank you.
And that is the agenda for Thursday, June 25th, 2020. Let's test your Ontario political trivia, shall we? What happened 25 years ago tomorrow? If your answer involved the swearing in of Premier Mike Harris and his common sense revolution, we hope you'll tune in tomorrow for a look back. And if you didn't guess that, well, then you won't want to miss the program. Mike Harris himself will be here to reflect on that tumultuous time. I'm Steve Paikin. Thanks for watching TVO, for joining us online at tvo.org, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.